Old money people can spot a fake in about 4 seconds. Not because they're snobs, but because they were raised around things that never change, so anything new sticks out like a stain on a white tablecloth. You've probably met someone like this without realizing it. They wore the same watch for 20 years. Their house smelled like lemon oil and old books. Nobody in that family ever posted their vacation on social media, yet somehow you knew they went somewhere quiet and expensive every August. People who grow up around real money don't talk about it. And that's exactly the tell. The families who whisper about their wealth are usually the ones who have the least to prove, and the ones who scream about it are usually 2 bad months away from losing it all. Here's the number that made me rethink everything about this topic. Nearly 70% of wealthy families lose their money by the second generation, and almost 90% lose it by the third. Think about that. Out of every 10 rich families you know today, only 1 will still be rich when their grandkids are running things. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And when you start looking at what separates the one family that keeps it from the 9 that don't, it comes down to something surprisingly simple: the stuff they refuse to bring into their homes. Old money houses reject certain things on principle, not because they can't afford them, but because those things represent a mindset that eats wealth alive. And once you see the list, you'll start noticing it everywhere, in shows, in real neighborhoods, in people you actually know. The first thing you'll never find in an old money house is anything with a visible logo. Not a belt buckle stamped with a designer name, not a purse with initials plastered across the front, not even a t-shirt with a brand splashed on the chest. This isn't about hating fashion. It's about a completely different relationship with quality. New money buys the logo because the logo tells other people what something costs. Old money buys the stitching, the fabric, the cut, and doesn't care if a stranger on the street has any idea what it's worth. There's a phrase you'll hear in old family circles, something like, if you have to tell people, it wasn't worth buying. A woman I heard about once inherited a coat from her grandmother, plain black wool, no tags visible anywhere. And when someone asked where it was from, she genuinely didn't know, because the label had been removed decades ago on purpose. That's the mentality. The value lives in the object, not in what it announces about the owner. And once you notice this, you start realizing that the loudest labels usually belong to the newest money, because insecurity needs an audience, and old confidence doesn't. The second thing is disposable furniture, the kind you build in an afternoon and toss out in 5 years. Old money houses are full of pieces that are older than the people sitting on them. A dining table might have been the site of 3 engagements, 2 funerals, and 1 very awkward family argument about an inheritance. And it's still standing there because it was built by someone who expected it to last 100 years. This connects to something deeper than furniture, though. It's about a completely different relationship with time. New money thinks in quarters and seasons, always upgrading, always chasing the next version. Old money thinks in generations. They're not asking, will this look good this year? They're asking, will my great-granddaughter still be using this? That mental shift changes everything. Not just how they shop, but how they invest, how they raise kids, how they handle a bad year financially. When you're thinking in decades instead of days, a stock market dip doesn't scare you the same way, because you already expected the ride to be bumpy. The third thing you'll never see is a house that looks freshly done. You know the type. Everything matching, everything glossy, everything looking like it walked straight out of a showroom yesterday. Old money houses looked lived in, sometimes even a little worn, with rugs that have faded in one corner because that's where the sun hits every afternoon, and nobody's rushing to replace it. There's an odd psychological trick happening here. A house that looks too perfect actually signals insecurity, like someone's trying hard to prove something. A house that looks slightly imperfect, slightly aged, signals the opposite: comfort, permanence, the sense that nothing needs to be proven because nothing is temporary. I heard about a decorator who was hired by a newly wealthy couple, and they specifically asked her to make their brand new mansion look less new, to distress the furniture on purpose, to hang art that looked inherited instead of purchased last week. They understood something instinctively, even if they couldn't say it out loud, which is that real permanence can't be faked overnight, but it can sometimes be imitated well enough to fool people who aren't paying close attention. The fourth thing is debt used for appearances. This one is less visible, but it's probably the most important because it's the one that actually determines whether a family stays wealthy or crashes. Old money families will use debt strategically for property, for business, for things that generate more money over time. What you almost never find is debt taken on to look richer than they are, meaning no financing a car that's above their means just to impress the neighbors, no maxing out credit for a vacation they can't actually afford. The families that disappear from wealth almost always disappear the same way. By spending like the money is permanent when it's actually temporary, by financing a lifestyle instead of owning it outright. There's a quiet rule that gets passed down in families like this, something along the lines of never let your spending grow as fast as your income, and ideally, never let anyone outside the family know exactly how much you have, because the moment people know your ceiling, they start expecting you to spend up to it. This is why a family worth 8 figures might drive a car that's 12 years old. Not because they're cheap, but because the car has nothing to do with how they see themselves. The fifth thing, and this is the one people miss the most, is a house full of screens in every room. Not because old money hates technology, but because they were raised to believe that constant stimulation is a form of poverty of attention, poverty of stillness. Walk into an old money living room and you'll often find a lot of quiet space. Actual bookshelves with actual read books, board games with pieces missing because they've been played so many times, a piano that somebody in the family can actually play. There's a reason for this that goes beyond taste. Constant entertainment trains a brain to need constant stimulation, and a person who can't sit in silence, who can't be bored without reaching for a phone, is a person who struggles to think long-term. And thinking long-term is the entire game when it comes to keeping money across generations. You can't plan 50 years ahead if you can't sit still for 50 minutes. This is probably the most overlooked reason wealthy families train their kids to read for hours, to sit through long dinners with no phones at the table, to learn an instrument, even if they'll never perform. It's not really about the piano or the book. It's about building the kind of mind that can delay gratification for decades, because that's exactly what it takes to hold on to something instead of burning through it in one flashy generation. When you put all 5 of these together, something interesting happens. None of them are actually about money. They're about restraint. The absence of logos is restraint in how you present yourself. The old furniture is restraint in how you consume. The lived-in look is restraint in how you perform for others. The avoidance of appearance debt is restraint in how you spend. And the quiet, screen-free rooms are restraint in how you seek stimulation. Every single one of these things is a form of saying no to something immediate in exchange for something that lasts. And that's really the whole secret hiding in plain sight. It's not the house, the coat, or the car that makes old money what it is. It's the discipline running quietly underneath all of it. The same discipline the 90% forgot to pass down, which is exactly why they didn't stay rich long enough for anyone to remember their name. If any of this hit home, you can buy me a coffee through the link in the description. It genuinely helps keep this channel going.